Welcome to the program, everyone. Great to have everyone back, and really pleased to introduce today Mary Henderson, who is a personal branding specialist. She's a pioneer in personal branding in Australia. Been getting a huge amount of profile over the last couple of years on LinkedIn that I've seen, and creating a lot of waves, and has been in this field for a long time. So Mary, really looking forward to getting into this discussion. Welcome.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No worries. Well, let's get into it, Mary. I'd really like you to start. Just tell us a bit about your story and when you started, personal branding yourself and using that in your sales career.
It's the best place I like to start, Stephen, because I can put it into context very, very quickly. So my career in sales really began after university. So I started off in the media industry. I really didn't like it. It just wasn't made for somebody like me. But in year 2000 was when I really started to hit the height of my career. And I got a job with Ingram Micro, which then was called Tech Pacific, and in a middle management role. So it was no big deal. Yes. And my director said to me on my first day, she said, "Mary, I've got great news and I've got really bad news. Now, the great news is you've got this amazing opportunity. The bad news is that you've got 12 weeks to fix it. And because we just can't fix the fulfillment benchmark. The two people before you couldn't fix it, you've got to fix it, basically." So off I go. I have my meeting with Colesmara, with a team. There's about, maybe 8, 9, 10 people in the room. It's all nicey-smicey. But the decision maker who had to be in that room, she didn't show up. So I'm thinking in my mind, I've got 12 weeks. The decision maker's not in the room. What do I do at this point? And I had no strategy except to say, okay, well, I've got to think about this and I'll come back to you. So I leave. And the door lift, I leave, walk to the lift, door lift opens. I've got my red snakeskin boots on, as you do, of course. I walk into the lift and there's a woman in the lift, and door lift closes, and this woman's behind me. I can feel her eyes staring at me up and down, up and down. And she says in that Colesmara voice, "I have to have those boots," or "Where did you buy those boots from?" And I looked at her and I said, "Are you such and such?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, you didn't show up to my meeting." And she said, "Well, that's because we're moving to your competitor." And she said, "Listen, your two predecessors couldn't fix the problem. My job's on the line. Our fulfillment rates, you know what they are. You guys can't meet them. It's not going to happen. So I'm sorry." And I said, "Are you going downstairs to have lunch?" And she said, "Yes." I said, "I just want 5 minutes of your time." I said, "We're in the lift. We're going on the ground floor. Please just give me 5 minutes." She said, "All right, let's go and have a coffee for 5 minutes." So we sat down and she said, "What do you need?" And I said to her, what do you need? How do you think you can fix this problem? I said, "I don't know how to fix the problem right in this moment, but what I do know, I need 12 weeks to sit in your office with the operations team to actually understand how your system works and then match that with our system. If you can give me that opportunity, I know I can fix it." And she said, "Okay, you got a deal. Let's do that. I'll give you 12 weeks. If you can't fix it, you're out." I said, I know I can fix this problem. So Stephen, I'm sharing that story for a reason. When I left that meeting with her, I just stood for a moment in contemplation, and I thought, something unbelievable just happened. Actually, two unbelievable things just happened. The first thing is that her and I connected from a like-minded zone, which wasn't technology, it was fashion. The power of connecting at a like-minded zone is so powerful. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing I realized is that if I can fix this complex problem that nobody else has been able to fix, I'm going to use that and leverage that to create a powerful personal brand. That was in year 2000. I'm thinking personal branding in year 2000. Okay. It's really trendy now, but back then no one knew what it was. And so I walked away, and in my mind, I had not a mission, but a really big, tenacious goal, because I could see what was in it for me. And isn't this how salespeople think, right? It's all about what's in it for me. It wasn't about the money. It was about the fact that I could build a brand in an industry that was so male dominated that I, a female, could actually stand out and be known as a complex problem solver. Now, I achieved all of that within that 12-week period and grew that business from a declining 8 million to a $22+ million business in 18 months with double-digit margins in distribution. Never heard of. So the reason I like to start off with that story is because it really sets the stage of what I want to talk about, or what we're going to talk about in this interview. And I think also for the listeners to actually grasp the thinking that's required, especially in today's digital economy.
Yeah. So you had this idea of personal branding before social even, right? And you're talking
way before
about
social, before. It was the manual version of social, exactly.
Yes. And just to clarify, I'll just distill that thought a little bit. So rather than just being a salesperson who's achieved certain revenue goals and made targets and quotas, and I've got these capabilities, you were layering something on top of that. That was just beyond being a salesperson and being a complex problem solver. And that became, part of your success and your branding, I guess, as you went through your career from then on.
Yeah, look, it really was. But the thing is, Stephen, that I became very consciously aware of it. And I think that's a very important word. This was a conscious decision that I made because I could see the power of it. And so everything that I did revolved around how to add currency to that brand. That's all I continued to do. I also realized, and this is another important point, and it may sound really crazy, but it was so strategic on my end. I realized that the conversation started around fashion was also very powerful, because then I got headhunted by an American firm called Belkin, and in the capacity of a sales director. And in that role, that was really masculine, or in terms of the people that I was dealing with and negotiating with, was in a really masculine environment. And most of the people that I was dealing with were at that C level, and therefore they all had, back then, PAs, EAs, whatever they're called. And I knew that if I could invest even something as crazy as my shoes, that the PA would always walk into the room and ask me if I would like a coffee or a tea. And I thought, I don't want to be asked for a coffee or a tea. I want the conversation to start at my shoes, because then I could actually own the room and break the ice, and also build on a memory. So what did I want to be remembered for after the meeting? So the shoes became this unbelievable conversation starter.
That was part of your brand too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was strategic and deliberate. The entire process was strategic and deliberate, and people just didn't get how I was just winning day on day, month on month. I mean, our growth, for example, at Belkin was, I started at 4 million and left 4 years later, 48 months later. That's what 4 years equals, at 54 million. Wow. I mean, these are figures that people would dream of today.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. All right. So you hit on a couple of things there, and obviously you were standing out, and that's become even more critical in today's market, right? There's this sort of sea of sameness out there. everyone's sort of looking the same. A lot of products and companies look the same. It's very hard to differentiate. And so, there's something I really believe in is we have to stand out in the sales function, and we have to stand out when a salesperson meets a customer. We really got to stand out because customers are getting hit with lots of approaches, and the approaches are very standard, and they're sort of batting them away. So I think your story is showing how the power of personal branding helps you to stand out from this.
I think, Stephen, that's a really important point you've just made. But I want to just go a little bit. I want to take that, if I may, in another direction. That question or that point you've just made. Here's what I'm seeing and what I can't believe. Leaders of sales teams, whether you're a sales director, general manager of sales, VP of sales, whatever you call yourself, the actual change needs to start there. And what I'm seeing is that a lot of sales leaders are leading like it's 1999. That model doesn't work. So leadership today, especially in sales, requires a very fast-paced thinking or mindset. It requires to step outside the comfort zone and do things that you've never done so that you can actually, collectively with your team, try things and move in a direction that your competitors are not moving in. So this idea, especially in IT, I still see it today. I'm still very connected, as you know, in the IT industry. Yep. And what I'm seeing is the same old, same old. Now, that's a problem. And it's a problem because when these fantastic professionals are made, for example, redundant, or they're wanting to leave and actually grow, there's nothing in the marketplace that actually is an open opportunity. In other words, there's not that many jobs around that are waiting for somebody to, like back in the 90s, you could leave one job and then go to another one. It was easy. It's not like that today, because today you can't just take in your CV and hope for the best. There's this notion around leadership that the way that it was is the way that it will stay. Well, I'm telling you that that's not going to work in the future, because the people that I meet that come to see Mary are the ones that have been made redundant, and they're in a fearful mindset at that point and looking at how to expand their brand, but it's too late. The idea is to do it whilst you're in your corporate roles and grow your brand within your industry. So it starts at leadership.
Right. So you're saying that leaders need to be jumping on this while they're in strong positions, and they're going to need to do this to stay competitive. You're not even just to get an edge or to stand out, but to be competitive and to be marketable in the future.
That's exactly right. And the thing is that we're not talking about personal branding from the standpoint of I want to be famous or I'm a narcissist. That is not what personal branding is in my version of personal branding. This is about being a smart business person, first and foremost. You've either got a mindset of an employee that comes purely from a what's in it for me angle, or you come from the standpoint of I'm a professional, I am an entrepreneur, but I don't want to leave my job and take those risks. So I want to stay in an organization, build an organization, because I still have those traits of an entrepreneur. Beautiful. Tick in the right direction. What we're talking about here is that individual can see and that they have a speciality or a skill set that comes very easy to them. It's very natural for them. There's an industry or something within an industry, a silo within an industry that they have been working in for a long time, that now starts to position them more like a specialist. So what we're talking about here is about finding a way to call yourself a specialist in an area. So if you're working for a cybersecurity company, well, then why don't you just zone in on that industry and perfect it, know everything about it, and also not just the cybersecurity, but then who are you serving in the cybersecurity? Is it tier 2, tier 1 enterprise, small businesses, SMEs? So start to narrow down your specialization. And what I'm talking about here, Stephen, is we have to clarify as brands what we do, who we serve, what we stand for, and what we promise, literally in one sentence. That's the job title. Yeah. The job title is not BDM or sales director or account manager or even COO, CMO. That's just a label that means nothing. So what I'm talking about here is packaging yourself as literally a business. Because when you're negotiating, you're not negotiating a CV. You're negotiating what it is that you know for sure. Yes. And to add to that, it's a specific way that you do it. So this is the business that I am, and this is how I do it. This is how I approach it. This is my methodology that I can bring into your business, and I can package it. And that's what you're paying for. Now, that's a very different conversation to somebody saying, yes, my strengths are these, my weaknesses are these. This is what I would do in a sales situation. Let's role play. I mean, what are we, children? Like, seriously, why do we need to role play in an interview? I just can't understand that. That's just so embarrassing. Not for the person, not for the candidate, for the actual leader. Right. The person actually interviewing a human being who's an adult, and they're asking them to role play. I mean, please. So the point being is that this is about being strategic and deliberate. How do you future-proof your career? You do what I did 19 years ago. I was already future-proofing my career because you know what, Stephen? I knew back then that I would be doing what I'm doing right now. I already knew back then that I would be doing what I'm doing right now. Yes. That's the level of thinking, the future-proofing that we need to be doing. And instead, what are we doing? We're reacting. We're on the hamster wheel. We're so excited when we get a label on a business card. I mean, whoopee-doo. That is meaningless. We really shouldn't have job titles. What we should have is personal brands on a business card. That's what we should be working towards. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for some people, like, okay, we want to position ourselves as specialists, like, we're a cybersecurity specialist in the medium business sector, or we understand, security in the banking or whatever, that type of thing, right? So for some people, they actually already have that expertise, right? And they already are good at that, but their business card still says New South Wales sales manager. Right?
Exactly.
Or their LinkedIn profile says, SMB sales manager for X company, right? Instead of I help SMBs to secure their credit card data or something, right?
Yes.
So some people have already got the expertise, but some don't, right? Or some haven't really thought about it. They're still quite broad. They're relying on like relationship skills or some product knowledge. So a lot of what you're saying fits in well with how we have to sell these days, because the old way of selling doesn't work either, right? So, what you're talking about with the personal branding is very in sync with that. So where does someone start? What's the process to future-proof ourselves here?
I think that there's I call it unpacking. There needs to be a phase that an individual has to go through before they can just stick some words on their LinkedIn profile that means nothing. Yeah. When I'm talking about personal branding, Stephen, I'm actually going a little bit deeper than just words on a business card. What I'm talking about here is the ability to give your people full permission to show up in their natural state. So we want to see the 24-hour version of Mary, not the 9-to-5 version of Mary. That's where personal branding starts. Now, most leaders are relying on job descriptions and KPIs. I mean, even that in itself is like the teacher-student type of arrangement, which also doesn't work in today's economy. What I'm saying is very different. I want to know that Stephen is passionate about triathlons. I actually want you to talk to me about that passion, because within that passion, I can see that you have some serious skill sets that we need in our team. I want to know what you do outside of 9 to 5, because I also know that Michelle over here is so passionate about cooking, and Michelle has a YouTube channel that she's so passionate about that after 9 to 5, she'll go home and record a video for her YouTube channel. I want to know about that, because Michelle has skill sets now that we can use in marketing or even our sales team. And maybe Michelle can help us start a sales channel. Okay. And let's educate our customers. So now I'm thinking outside of 9 to 5. I'm now thinking, how do I humanize the humans that are in my team? That's how I'm thinking, because I don't want to know Mary as her job description and the KPIs she has to meet. I want to know Mary. I want to know about her passions. I want to know who she is in her natural state, because that's how I want her to show up every day. If I can do that, Mary's going to give me not 100%, but 500%.
Right.
This is how I built Belkin. This is how I built the Tech Pacific business. It's because the people that I worked with, I gave them full permission to show up as their true natural state of being.
Be their whole selves, right?
Yes.
We're sort of talking about the whole person.
And
we're seeing this pop up now. I think it's pretty leading edge, even though you're saying you're doing it for a long time. But I'm starting to see it pop up on people's profiles now. You're starting to see a mix, and even they're sort of got I wouldn't say comedy, but it's sort of like some humor, even in about what they're passionate about, or they might have it on their email signature. They'll have some personal, something that gives you an insight into them personally, right? So you're that's something you like to see, I guess.
Well, I think, Stephen, it does one more thing, and I think this is where we're missing the point. The point being is that now you have a knowledge base within your business, and you're creating an ecosystem based on a lot of IP that actually remains in the business even when that person leaves. So this fear around investing in their customer-facing people as personal brands, usually the fear is, what if they become famous? That's really what the fear is about. That no one's going to become famous in IT, I can assure you, or as a salesperson. We're not talking about becoming famous. We're talking about positioning your customer-facing people as specialists. It does sound very different when you're pitching for a multi-million or billion-dollar deal, and you've got your key people in a boardroom pitching to the other party and saying, Mary over here is a specialist in blah, blah, blah. Not she's a BDM. It means nothing to the people receiving the information on the other side of the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And if all those people have got credibility in the market, they've got social credibility, it's going to help, right? It's only going to help us win more business.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I've proven
there is that worry, isn't there, from some leadership about people getting too involved in social and building their profile. But do there need to be any barriers or around that? Like we want people to be in sync with the company's brand, but also have some freedom to express their own brand as well, right?
So that's a brilliant question. The corporate brand and the personal brand must be aligned first and foremost.
Yeah.
We're not building wannabe rock stars. That's not what we're doing here. I'm not interested in that.
You do that on Facebook or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if we're going to use, let's say, LinkedIn as a platform, what we're doing is we've made a decision, the corporation's made a decision that they want to invest in, say, their sales team, which is fantastic. what I do is the marketing team need to be involved in that discussion, because we're not going to allow the salespeople to go on a tangent and start creating, really stupid videos with their children running in the background talking about cybersecurity. Like, that's just, unless it's in context. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to be strategic and deliberate. We're going to allow marketing to come in and help us help the organization with content that actually makes sense to the various different customers or the silos or the different industries that organization is working with. So it really needs to be, there needs to be a whole strategy around it. It's not just about changing your title and calling yourself a personal brand. This is really about becoming involved in industry associations, industry events, being allowed to show up as a keynote speaker in your area of expertise, show up in industry journals, because the corporation is comfortable with that, knowing that it's actually adding value to their organization. If I'm going to call myself a cybersecurity specialist and somebody calls me to actually speak at a keynote, I'm not going to be talking about my own business. I'm going to be referencing the company I work for, aren't I? Like, it's common sense. So it's just PR. It's all really, what we're talking about here is free PR or extended PR for the corporation. Now, Stephen, I just want to make one more point here, and this is really important. On the flip side of that, the corporate branding is now personal. So it's no longer a corporate brand can push on TV commercials, because nobody watches TV anymore, and hope that people buy. We're talking about the power of human beings within an organization that already have multiple social profiles. They're on Facebook, they're on Insta, they're on LinkedIn. So when you actually add up all of the followers that all of their employees have, it most likely 100-fold the followers that the company has. So who holds the power now? Is it the corporation, or is it the people?
I think it's a really good point. And we know, like, people don't relate to companies. Customers don't relate to companies, especially in the B2B world anyway. They're going to relate to the people they're working with, right? And respond to that.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of logic there, a lot of logic. So something we talked about before that I want to make sure we cover, Mary, is when the benefit of doing this for when someone's looking to make a change or going into the marketplace, right? And rather than just leading with the old black and white CV that lists all of our achievements and things, the benefit of having a brand. We're probably going to be in demand. We're probably not going to be looking for a job, right?
I think that my view in the way that even I run my business today is I create my own demand. That's that has been my strategy for most of my career, but especially from year 2000. I'm creating my demand. I want people to know in the marketplace about my specialization, and I'm going to be very strategic and deliberate about it. So, and I think that it all starts with that mindset, that question in mind, because to create demand means that you're being noticed in your industry as the go-to person for that. And if you can be known as the go-to person, let me assure you, you will never, ever, ever have to look for a job, because people will want you to work for them, because you are now seen as the specialist. We want specialists to work for us, not just employees. We actually need specialists to help us grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Mary, we covered a lot of ground there and really, really appreciate it. I got a lot out of that. I'm sure the listeners have. Is there something you'd like to finish up with, some advice for our sales leaders and sales professionals out there?
I think two things. First of all, the sales leaders need to let go of the old paradigm, ASAP, because it doesn't serve them either. Okay, that's the first thing. Sales professionals, especially who are out in the field, we all know that the maximum tenure in sales at the moment is 18 months, which is really scary. What we need to be doing is actually packaging ourselves as businesses and start thinking like that when we're actually talking to even our clients and customers and potential employees? How do you actually position yourself as a business? What is your approach? What is your methodology? What is it that you bring to the table? Because that's what they're paying for. You need to figure out your currency from that standpoint.
Excellent. Excellent. Thanks a lot, Mary. Really appreciate it. And then we're going to have to get you back and dig into some other topics as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks everyone for listening and watching, and look forward to engaging with you all more. Bye for now.